This is the laziest, easiest, quickest vertical garden you can set up in your backyard. It basically uses your chain link fence as a frame, and to which we simply add rain gutters filled with growing mediums. Khaled here with the Plant Charmer channel. Today we're taking a look at transforming your chain link fences into vertical gardens. Alright, so let's take a quick look at how we've got this set up. These are regular 5-inch PVC rain gutters that I got at Home Depot a couple of years back. You guys know the story. So we got these set up here on the fence. So the setting up is a little different from the frame system that we use, in the sense that we don't have an underneath beam here to support the gutter. We simply use the fence. The chain links on the fence are going to be the anchors for the gutters. So in order to have the gutters secured to our fence, it's pretty straightforward actually. We have a zip tie. Now we've cut the end here to make it a little cleaner, but we've got a zip tie, 11-inch, 50-pound rated, UV resistant, very important. So black zip ties are usually UV resistant because they absorb the heat instead of breaking the polymer down. So these zip ties, just one around one chain link here, and we've got a hole here that we've drilled just to allow the zip tie to pass through. So simple setup, just put the zip tie, tighten it, and if you got 50-pound rated zip ties, which are good for carrying weight even when these gutters are wet, then you're not going to have any problems with having a stable gutter throughout the season. So we're going to put one every 2 feet or so. So for a 10-foot gutter, that would be about 5 or 6 anchoring points, depending how many you want to put. Check how much you feel is necessary. In this case, it's pretty stable. Of course, it's going to move a little bit because the fence is itself flexible. So that's it for this part. Now let's just take a look at our spacing. We're going to change angles. Alright, so if we take a look at the spacing between our gutters, the spacing is actually quite similar to what we use on our commercial A-frame systems. So if you actually take where the gutter starts here to where the next gutter starts, that's how you should measure it, you've got about a foot or so. Now a foot is a good number because it allows you to grow quite a nice variety of plants which are compact but yet still very productive. So don't forget, our objective when we grow in systems like this is to create a wall of green, so a canopy. But we don't want a canopy that overlaps. So we try to calculate our plants so that they just start here and they finish about here or here. Now here you're going to tell me is above where the next gutter starts, true, but most plants actually don't flower that low and don't even leaf that low. So optimum efficiency of our system is attained by having a plant that starts here, that covers the gutter above it, and even a little bit more, actually an inch or two above. So that's what we always aim for. So that allows you to grow plants such as strawberries, lettuces. We got the compact pepper plants. By the way, I'm going to be making a video next week on the ideal cultivars for these systems, so you guys can get the proper seed, or at least the optimal seeds, and get the best results out of this. So a foot is always a good number. Like I said, if you're growing a plant that is taller and you know it's going to get taller, then you might want to space them out more. But in order to reach the maximum efficiency on a maximum number of plants, we use about a foot or so. So that allows us to grow plants which are about 12 to 14 inches, and that includes a wide variety of desirable plants. All right, now we're going to talk about the proper soil or the proper medium or substrate to actually grow in when you're growing in containers, because a gutter actually is a container. We want to have a soil that is light, fluffy, well-draining, that retains oxygen, retains water, and does not compact. So I know it's a tall order for a medium, but these actually exist. And these soilless medium, as we call them, are usually made up of either peat moss or coconut fiber. So in this case, it's going to be peat moss. We do put perlite in, as you see these little white beads in the soil. This helps with drainage, oxygen retention. So you'll usually find that in soilless mixes based on peat moss. So coconut fiber usually does not use any perlite. And using a medium like that will allow your roots to really dig into the medium, anchor themselves, and go get the nutrients. Now, I rarely hear YouTubers talking about that, but it's very important. It's called cash and exchange capacity. So CEC is basically the ability of your medium to transfer nutrients from the soil to the roots. So some mediums have a higher CEC, some have a lower CEC. Mediums based on peat moss and coconut fiber have an extremely high CEC, so there's no trouble at all exchanging fertilizer or food or nutrients between the medium and the actual root system, which is super important. So when you take a good quality mix like this in your hand, you right away feel it's fluffy. I say that in a lot of my videos. I put the emphasis on the medium a lot, but the reason I do that is because it's the basis of success. It can be tempting to get these cheap bags of soil at the hardware store or the garden store when you go there, as opposed to these good mixes, which are quite pricey in comparison, but there's no comparison possible really. When you actually grow in both mediums, you'll realize that the top soil that they sell you is actually an absolute waste of time. So a soil like this is fluffy, it feels fluffy to the touch, it doesn't feel waterlogged. You cannot turn it into a ball like you would with clay. See that? So we can tell right away that the principles of physics indicate to us that the plants will have no trouble growing their roots through that. And of course, good roots, good plants, good fruits. All right, let's talk about fertilizer for a quick moment. So you guys know I'm a big fan of organic chicken manure in pellet form. We've switched on the farm to a mostly liquid diet for our plants. The reason for that is we use drip tape, and this makes it much easier to automate the whole process of passing the water in the tape, passing the fertilizer dissolved in the water in a process called fertigation. Because here I'm at home, and you guys probably are at home and you're not using fertigation yet, even if you are actually, it's very good to put in your gutters at the beginning of the season what we call a base charge or a starter charge. So the drip tape and the food in the drip tape are going to do a good part of the job for the season, but we want our plants to encounter a good mineral background the second they start rooting. So that's valid for our strawberries once they wake up from dormancy. That's also valid for our lettuces, or radishes, or beets. Whatever has roots, which means all plants, need to encounter a good mineral background upon establishment. That'll set the tone for the plant for the rest of the season. So one of the fertilizers I love to use, as you guys know, is this pelleted chicken manure. This is actually a 555, so it does not include only chicken manure, which is usually higher in nitrogen. So if it were just chicken manure, you'd have a higher first number in your NPK, which is the N part. So in this case, I've mixed a 532 and a 468, which gives us about a 555. But yeah, so we have that here. We're just going to grab a handful, and I'll show you guys the quantities that I actually put in for a certain section, and you can get an idea. So if we actually look at that, I'm going to get the camera closer in a moment. All right, this is about the quantity that I'm going to put in as a base charge. And whenever I fertilize every 2 or 3 weeks in the future, I'm going to put about this amount or so. So it's a small amount. Plants absorb smaller amounts more often, much better than they absorb large amounts less often. So it's a little bit more work. But when we talk about, you know, loving your plants, this is part of it. And that's it. So you're just going to mix that in. I'm going to put the camera back on the tripod. All right, so now we've got the fertilizer inside the gutter. Of course, what we want to do is mix it. I'm going to show you guys 2 methods for mixing. So one is manual. It's going to be the first method. So just put your hand on the side of the gutter here, just so you don't spill all of your soil out. And then you can just go like this. So this actually mixes it in. Notice how my thumb actually goes underneath each time. So I actually push the fertilizer in, and that's it. So now we've got a nicely fertilized section right here. I can actually use another tool as well. That's a new tool I have this year. It's called a handheld wire weeder. So this is actually perfect for gutters. Now you guys are probably familiar with wire weeders before seeing this, but the difference is this guy is super small. It's handheld. So that section right here, which I'm pointing, we're going to work the fertilizer in with that tool. So check it out, same thing. We always put a hand on the side of the gutter here, just so we do not have all of our soil spill over. And we're just gonna go in like this. As you can see, the soil is mixing. If you have old plant roots, by the way, you may stumble upon a few crowns from old strawberries or whatever, just throw these out. But now we've got soil mixed into this whole section. So very simple stuff. Repeat this operation about every 2 weeks after the first month of planting, because the first month is always cooler, so your plants will dry out less fast. They'll consume less nutrients because they'll metabolize and photosynthesize less. And that's it. Simple lesson. All right, so a couple of final tips on this system, or this rain gutter chain link system we have here, is you've probably noticed throughout the video that not all of my gutters are full. This is from last year, so these gutters have not been filled up or topped up yet. Of course, make sure you fill your gutters to the actual gutter line here to the top. and you can even overflow a little bit if you're filling them for the first time. The reason for that is that the soil is actually going to compact a little bit, just a tiny bit. I know I said before it doesn't compact. It's going to settle, actually. Let's call it that. So all the air pockets that are in there and that are irregular in size will actually collapse upon themselves, and you'll get a regular air pocket size throughout, which basically means that your soil will be even everywhere. So just make sure it's full. This way your roots have as much space as possible to grow. One last thing, I'm going to get the watering hose and show you guys just when we water this, it all settles in nice, and we can dig a quick little trench for direct seeding, or we can actually dig some small holes and put in our seedlings. All right, so I've got the watering hose here. By the way, the plastic is still on it here because I just installed this 2 days ago. It's a automatic reel back hose from HoseLink. These guys were super nice to send me one free of charge. I'm being super transparent about that. I'm going to be using that quite a bit this season because it actually reaches the back and the front of my property. It reels back in on its own, and it's really nice. So I would not have accepted the gift if I did not think they were a good company. So far they deliver. So we've got this little row right here. It's going to water that quick, just as a demonstration. Get on the shower mode, something that's going to give you a good amount of water, but that's still not going to be too rough or brutal on your plants. So let's just turn this on, and that's it. When you're watering, make passes back and forth. Don't stay in one spot. You're just going to move the soil around and flood that specific section. All right, so done. So we've got a nicely watered row. Now, ideally, you allow that to dry out or just drain out for a couple of minutes. We're not going to do that now. It's not absolutely necessary. Now, let's say I were to plant radishes or beets in here, or it's a little later in the season and I'm planting bush beans. I'm just going to take my finger and just go in and dig a quick little trench. That's it. I think you guys can see that a little better now. So I've got a little trench in here. I could just come in here and just seed my plants and then just go in, cover it, give it a little watering, and that's it. Just don't allow that to dry out while the plants are germinating. All right, guys, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little lesson that gives you one more option if you don't have that much space in your backyard, or if you just don't want to use the space in your backyard. Well, you know what? You've got these fences that got you covered in gardening, and you can grow an impressive amount of produce in there. As I've proven on Instagram a couple of times in the last few years, this used to be what we called the berry fence. So we had 400 strawberry plants on this fence. It's actually pretty long, but we did get great yields out of that. If you do want to have a standalone version, like I use on the farm, but smaller, don't forget to check out my How to Build the Ingenious Mini tutorial. There's 2 videos, one on shopping for materials and the other one on construction. That's a standalone unit that has 3 gutters, is about this tall, and can actually be folded and stored for the winter. Again, my name is Khaled, known as the Plant Charmer. I'll see you next time. Keep it green.